Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Morning Quarterback. Today, we are four pastors who love ministry, leadership, and sports. Today is a somber day in the Frajowski household. Dad, how you feeling? You just got off a cruise, but last night was rough.
I'm not feeling good. I got to be honest with you. I'm suffering a loss, and it's a household. I'm trying to be strong for my wife, who's hurting more than I am. And I know I have to face Adam Denny, so it's not a good day right now.
The only positive is that we got the Dr. Jim O'Neill on the podcast today.
That is true.
Of the show, Tennessee Temple Connection. Dr. Jim, how you doing today? Coming from, I believe you're in the lovely state of Florida?
Yes, down here for a couple of weeks in the great state of Florida. And I've enjoyed the show. So to be hanging out with you guys, not only because we enjoy football together, but the great friendships we had over the years. This is a treat, boys.
And what perfect timing, because Jim's team is the only team that's still in the playoffs, the Eagles, which we'll talk about. But before I continue, Adam, how are you feeling today, sir?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm doing great. I am having a marvelous Monday morning and excited to be here, man.
Man, Adam looks like it's Christmas. Well, you know, we were going to give Adam the floor and just let him get all of his bloviating nonsense out of the way, but he insisted that we speak first. So, gentlemen, we will talk about all the playoff games, but first, Dad, let's give some truth serum to any Cowboy fans out there and people that say we can't be unbiased. What did you make of that just debacle yesterday that took place?
Well, let me just say this. I don't think it was a debacle.
I agree.
I was proud of our team. I think we came ready to fight, and we went toe to toe with a big bad bully. And I was ultimately happy and excited to see the direction we're going. However, with all that being said, Dak failed us yesterday. I lay that loss at his feet. I think coaching was well. We had a couple little thoughts, that could have went other ways on coaching decisions, but I think the team was ready. He had them prepared. I think our defense played fantastic. I think our offensive line played pretty decent against that vaunted defense. What we needed was our quarterback to stand up and step up and to lead us. And unfortunately, he was the weak link. And so I think there's some things that we need to address, and maybe we'll talk about them further in this episode or maybe on down the line. But he failed us. I'm disappointed in Dak.
He did, and there's no other way you can slice it. And I think we need to start having a conversation of, if you don't have a quarterback in the top 1, 2, 3, or 4, pretty much we're all in the same boat. We're kind of stuck in that quarterback purgatory, because once you get to this level, you either got to have an amazing defense, kind of like San Francisco does, or you got to have a top 4 guy. So, we've defended Dak. I think the thing with Dak is he gives you glimpses. He gives you glimpses of elite. He looked elite against Tampa, but for whatever reason, he just can't. In year 7, he just can't put consistent games in front of each other. And so Cowboy Nation today is really questioning. And what do you do? Trade him, get a rookie, hope to get a Brock Purdy. There's no easy answer. Yes, we could have had more weapons. Yes, would I prefer Kellen Moore to move on and give him a new voice? Yeah, I think McCarthy's earned his job back. The defense played amazing. Adam was foaming at the mouth at how fast our defensive line looked. And so there's a lot of promise, but I think it's the years. We're starting to get into that Israel 40 years in the wilderness. We're at, I think, year 30 now, and it's starting to get a little dry. So while we had a great season and a fun season, we just want to get over the hump. So we're not going to come out here and say any nonsense. Adam, we're going to take it on the chin. So with that said, Adam A. Smith, go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. And I am glad to hear reality setting in both of your minds a little bit. I do want to say this, though, as much fun as we have with this, and it brings me so much joy in the depth of my being to be talking about the Cowboys. I do want to just say that it is fun to watch. It's fun to joke with you guys. I am sorry in some ways that your team lost just because I like you two so much. And I've got so many Cowboy fans. And so my condolences in that way. Now to the good part. So when the two of you asked me about 7 or 8 months ago, hey, why don't we do a podcast that kind of hits two areas at the same time? Because people love sports podcasts. And of course, there's a large movement of Christians and Christian leaders podcasts. You know, I was already intrigued. But if I had to nail down the main reason why I agreed, all of us are pastors, we're very busy, we have children, all these kinds of things. Here is what really stood out to me. Is for today. This is why I signed up for the Sunday morning quarterbacks for today. Listen, today makes 28 years since the Cowgirls have been not won a Super Bowl, not been to the Super Bowl. They haven't even been to the conference championship in 28 years. Okay. So I feel your pain. I feel your pain. But to follow up with what you guys said, these are self-inflicted pains you're feeling. Guess what? The New York Giants fan base, they're not down and out all over the media. The Bills are not down and out all over the media. This is self-inflicted by Cowboy Nation. By Cowboy Nation, because you all set the bar so high every August, and you say, well, we might go to the Super Bowl. This is the year. This is the year. Here we sit today. So down to the game now, I think you guys are spot on. And it's sad because Dak, he's a nice guy. But guess what? You're not getting paid whatever he is, $50 million a year to be a nice guy. You're supposed to be a nice guy. He is choked. And I think in many ways, guys, I don't know if you've thought about this already, the verdict is out on Dak Prescott. He cannot carry a team. And you mentioned that they need a great defense. Hey, yesterday, their defense was lights out. I mean, it was. I've seen worse quarterbacks win Super Bowls. I think of Peyton Manning beating my team. He was a shell of who he was his whole career. You know, Joe Flacco, these guys, they've won Super Bowls. So it's not that Dak has to be perfect. He just can't do what he always does. And that's choke when the brights are lightest. And so, you know, I sadly, in some ways say, you know, you guys are going into the offseason in the same exact situation as my team is. Do we have the coach and do we have a franchise quarterback? And I don't know, what do you think right now today? Do you think you guys have who you need to win a Super Bowl one day?
In this combination, no, I don't. I think Dak can, but I think then we need to take up the slack with a better coach that can understand his strengths a little bit better. There was a lot of times when the dump off was there, and I think we've given him free reign a little bit too much. So I think we really need to pull back, really truly understand who he is, and build an offense around his strength. And I don't know if that's Mike McCarthy or not,
or Kellen Moore.
Or Kellen Moore. So yeah. and it could be Mike McCarthy, but he needs another voice. He needs a guy that's much older. That
he needs a guru. He needs a Shanahan, a McVay. He needs a guru to raise his level a little bit, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, so I've got a problem with Kellen Moore. You know, I've never been a big fan of the head coach from the time he was hired, but boy, last night just made me think there's something wrong here. If Tony Pollard goes out, granted, San Francisco has a great defense, but still. To have that poor of a showing with the weapons they have, that's inexcusable.
Yeah, and it looked totally different.
In that last play, it's like they took, I think, like 2 timeouts with the TV timeout. It's like, what in the world were you even doing?
They called the game very differently than they did Tampa. Tampa, they put them on the move. They moved the pocket. Where yesterday, you just hold him in the pocket and making him dart passes, and this is not his game. But hey, enough of our somberness for those of you out there. Adam always talks about, all I want to do is talk about the Cowboys, so we're going to leave it there. But I will say, for Carolina Panther fans or Cowboy haters, today is their second Christmas, okay? When your team stinks, the next best thing to root for is Dallas to lose. So you know what? We'll take it on the chin. It's a part of being America's team. But there was one team that looked pretty darn good this weekend. And Jim, how about them Eagles? Fly, Eagles fly. What did you think about the show that Mr. Hertz put on? What did you think about your Eagles, sir?
You know, I often, when I watch the Eagles, there seems to me to be a corollary between Hertz's capacity to control the field and the strength of the defense of the Eagles, something happens. He gives because he creates more time for the offense on the field. The defense constantly comes in fresh. So they have these fresh legs. And I when you watch the two of them, I was literally going into the game thinking the Giants have arrived. The way they played the previous week, I am thinking, oh, that defense is going to dominate. And it was just fascinating to watch. So from beginning to end, all three skill players performed well offensively with Hurts, and then watching the defense control the Giants offense, just kept them in a pocket and smothered them. It was a coach's clinic.
Oh, it
And
was.
while I was really happy for the Giants overall, by by the fourth quarter, I'm starting to feel bad for them.
Yeah, and Philly's one of those teams, they come out swinging. If you don't get control of them quick, the game's over. And they've done that several times this season. I think you're right, Doc.
So
I think you're right.
If I could just other thing is this was so timely for Hurts to come in and say, I got it. Because everybody's still wondering which Hurts is going to show up, right?
Yep.
And when he showed up the way he did, oh my!
We're going to find out, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But we're going to find out when he goes against San Francisco, because that's a different level. Fly, Eagles, fly.
I just had to show it for everybody out there, all our Eagle fans.
Yes, give them their props today. Hey, we'll get to round 2 matchups, but there's one game. Okay, we know Kansas City won, and Mahomes got hurt, and Trevor Lawrence finally really punched through and made a name for himself in the playoffs. But we got to talk about the Buffalo Bills. Man, I think the even as great as the Eagles looked, the performance of the weekend was Joe Burrow. I heard somebody say today, I think Dan Orlovsky said that he believes he's the best quarterback in the NFL. While Mahomes might be the most talented, Joe Shiesty, they call him. And for the longest time, Adam has been saying it's going to be Buffalo in the Super Bowl. This is their year. This is their year. And Dad, I gotta give it to you. You've been riding the Bengals bandwagon, so props to you there. But man, Joe Burrow was just dicing it up. And I don't know how today anybody can say that Josh Allen is better than Joe Burrow. Dad, I'll let you lead on this one. What did you think about Joe Shiesty yesterday?
Well, I'm going to start off with Buffalo because from the very beginning, people thought that they were going to the Super Bowl, going to win. After that game they had with Kansas City a year ago. And unfortunately for Buffalo, I think they took a step back. Now, they did have some injuries and some big injuries, but I think they've hit their ceiling. And there are some people going to start asking questions about their coach, because their coach has not been able to deliver a run game. He's not been able to deliver that offensive line protection and open some holes. So they've kind of gone stagnant, so much so that I think they've taken a step back. And so they've got to take a good look at themselves and really ask themselves, what's the identity of our team? Now with Cincinnati, I think you have something special going on there. And Mr. Joe Cool himself has done such a phenomenal job that nobody's talking about how good that coaching staff's doing. Mm-hmm. Because when they look at Cincinnati, they look at one guy, one culture-setting guy. And that's because that's what he's done. I mean, he went to a place no one wanted to go to and elevated that from the moment he got there. And so I see Brady and Montana coming together. They had a baby, and that's Joe Burrow. That's what I see. I mean, he is one cool customer. If you watch his throws, I was watching his throws. It's not laser focused. It's not flying through the snow. It's just right on point, always at the right timing and the right angles. And he's just a smart guy. I think that you seeing a guy that's a natural at being a quarterback, and you put in time and preparation, work ethic, and swagger to give him that extra confidence. I mean, he's something special, and we're going to enjoy watching him for years to come.
Adam, you kind of told us it was coming. You had seen the warning signs. What was your overall final thought on Buffalo?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for whatever reason, despite the fact that they play in the kind of weather they do, they over the last few years, they're not like a ground and pound type of team. And you almost wonder why not. You need to be, because we were talking about this, last year with Josh Allen. Like, that's great that you're that big and you can run that well, but we don't know if you're going to have a long tenured career if you keep having to take those hits. You need, running backs on your squad that can run the ball and take those hits for you. And for whatever reason, it's kind of odd because, like, you look around the NFL and, running backs aren't that difficult to come by. And they've just not been able to do that. But I think what you guys said about, Joe Burrow might be the best quarterback in the NFL. And I agree with that take about Mahomes has the talent. But, last year we were saying, are we entering like the Brady and Manning era with Allen and Mahomes? I think Joe Burrow's saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. You might want to think about me as well. And I think, Joe, you're spot on too. Zach Taylor has proven himself to be an excellent coach. And that defense and really just special teams, it's all buttoned up, and they're a complete team.
Yeah, and honestly, they're in a very similar spot the Cowboys are. I mean, if you look outside of Stephon Diggs, they really didn't have anybody else they could go to with the ball other than, they were throwing to Cole Beasley, who was, they cut him and brought him back. And so they've definitely got to look in the mirror. They didn't have Brian Daboll, who kind of reeled Josh Allen in. And so we'll see. As bad as Dallas feels today, Buffalo is in a similar state because they've got to retool around them because those teams are getting good quick. Fun little fact real quick. The thing that'll be interesting next year is I want to say like in 20 years, the NFC champion has been different every year. So being that the Eagles win this year, and how about NFC East went from least to East, and this year they're still holding out. But man, what a great year for the NFC East finally coming back. So that'll be something interesting to watch. All right, fellas, let's do our preacher's picks. Let's get into the championship weekends. Let's put some, I didn't ask you all this, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's do some score predictions. Jim, I'm going to start with you. San Francisco vaunted defense versus the number one dog all year, the Niners. Jalen, not totally healthy, not sure. Who do you think's going to win, and what's your score prediction?
20-17.
Ooh.
They're not. It's not going to be a big scoring game. 20-17. Eagles go to the Super Bowl.
Wow. I like it.
Wow.
I like it. Dad, what do you think?
I am very much looking forward to seeing these two mammoth teams collide. You're talking about physicality. You're going to see it. You're going to see that on offensive line against that defense. But all in all, I think Philly's going to win 27-13. I think Philly, the running quarterback, he's going to come into play. And so I think that it's going to be tight. And then in the fourth quarter, I think they're going to wear them out a little bit. It's in Philly. And I think they're going to pull away at the end. So 27-13. I don't see Brock Purdy putting up a lot of points against that defense. And he won't have that much time because I think Philly will do pretty well holding that, being on offense for a little while longer than normal teams.
Adam?
I'm going to go with Philly too. Obviously, there's a lot to like about San Francisco, but I just can't shake this feeling. As much as I like the underdog story, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, doing what he's doing, eventually that inexperience is going to catch up to him, and I think it's going to be against the Eagles. So I'm going to say 27-17 Philly, and they're going to have at least one defensive touchdown, Philly will.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow. So
Man,
3 for Philly. I'm going to ride with San Francisco. I can already see it. It's going to be this will be the game where they're going to get to Jalen. He'll throw a pick. I'll say 24-17, but then I can see it shaping up to the Super Bowl where young rookie quarterback versus either Joe Burrow or Mahomes, and that's just a no-win. So I say San Francisco, though, they're going to put them clamps on, and I don't know that Eagles D will play as good as Dallas did. I think they're gonna figure a thing or two out, and McCaffrey and Debo are gonna get off a little bit. So I say, hate to say it, Jim, 24-17, and I'm gonna skip to the next game, the game that is gonna be real interesting because you got Joe Burrow is ready to go, but you got Mahomes. Everybody's gonna be wondering about that ankle. And Adam, have you seen the spread yet? What's the line? Do we know?
No.
I hadn't seen it yet, but I'm not selling my Chiefs stock. I think everybody's gonna pick the Bengals because of Mahomes. And again, I told y'all from the beginning, this is gonna be the year that Mahomes reminds the world just how great he is. And it's going to be in Arrowhead, and that's a tough place. But, man, let's just say, beating a team 4 times in a row is hard. It's very hard. So I think it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be one of those whoever has the ball last. And I think at Arrowhead, I think the Chiefs are going to get the ball last. I'm going to say 34-31 Chiefs, Eagles at the Super Bowl. That's my pick. Dad, what you say? You riding the Bengals?
You daggone right, I'm riding the Bengals. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's going to be as close as you think. I think it's going to be 31-20. I can see them scoring 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. I think they have a problem in the red zone, especially without his wheels. And the Bengals are coming in. They're the one team and one team only, I really believe, that will not blink against Mahomes. Joe Burrow will look him in the eye and believe with his whole heart that I'm better and our team is better. I think that's the only team. And so they're going to come in there. They still got that chip on their shoulder. And I think they're going to start exactly what they did with Buffalo. Start hot and then ride it through, because Kansas City, 3 in a row, they lost last year and Mahomes did not look good in the second half. And so those things play on you. He's human too. And so I think I'm going 31-20, and I think his legs are going to be a key factor in it.
Wow. Adam, what you think?
I don't disagree with you, men, in a general sense, but here's what's making my decision for me. Mahomes getting that ankle injury, to me, is going to be the difference in this game. We won't know it. It won't show up on the box score, but not that he's a running quarterback, but man, he extends a lot of plays that way and can pick you up a first down when you really get into a bind. So if Mahomes was healthy fully, and even if he's like 80%, I would be picking the Kansas City Chiefs. But I gotta roll with Cincy. They're hot, and I'm talking hot, and they've got all the confidence in the world. I know it's at Arrowhead, but I'm gonna go with Cincinnati in a nail biter. And I don't feel real confident about it, but Mahomes' injury is what takes the cake.
Hey, Adam, I think when he's in the red zone, that's going to be the difference. I don't think that leg can prevent them from getting touchdowns and they get field goals, and you can't do that against this team.
Yeah. Jim, what you think?
Andy Reid has been able to camouflage a weak defense all year. And he is going to be exposed. Now, Andy's genius in many
ways. Good point. I like it.
40-30 Cincinnati.
40-30.
The Chiefs defense, with or without Mahomes, is going to get exposed. And I think that hurts, because I'm an Andy guy. Anybody who coaches for the Eagles and then, goes on to a Super Bowl, man, he's got my heart. But he has been able to disguise a weak defense.
I agree.
We'll see. This is going to be big. Vegas says total points is expected is 47, and they have the Bengals, or they have Chiefs -1. So typically the home teams get 1 to 3. So pretty much it's leaning toward Bengals. But man, that's going to be a showdown. Well, fellas, we'll see.
2 good ones.
We'll see. Next week we'll have our Super Bowl predictions, and that'll be super fun. But man, let's shift gears to ministry and leadership. And Jim, we're so happy to have you on. We've been great friends with you for years, and just to kind of give the people a little context, we all met you at Tennessee Temple, and you were on staff there, and you were what I call a missions guru, and you just have that gift and that brain. And so, if you could kind of give us a little introduction, we've heard your Philly sports bias, and when you start, can you please tell us about the award you were telling us you got yesterday? From high school. Tell us about that, and a little bit about you and Sterling, where you guys are at currently in life, and just what your where the Lord's planted y'all at the moment.
I grew up outside of Philly, the city of Reading, Catholic high school, great sports program. I was just recently inducted into our high school Hall of Fame, all-star halfback. Scored 24 touchdowns my senior year. Half of them punt and kick returns.
Man,
our coach was a stinking genius, and I for the life of me can't figure out why other teams just didn't simply steal our playbook. It was that good, but it was great to be back 4 decades later with friends, and of course, and then I come to faith in university years, and then this journey I've been on, educator, writing books, in mission work globally, and they just, who are you? It was great. So to head back home, I just love sitting with it. Came to faith, began to prepare for ministry. God sent Sterling and me to Asia, 13 years, it was amazing. And then 16 years in leadership, both the mission work and at Tennessee Temple. Really great privilege to work with your daddy, Joseph. Loved time with Joe, and then from there, Stir and I just continue on in mission work with Frontier Ventures. This time, not having to lead organizations, so it's kind of a neat season of convergence. A lot of work helping not only the North America. We have this next gen movement with global young leaders that we continue to pursue, but God has just given us great favor with majority world leaders. And it's been fun to sit with them because they're doing work for Jesus, seeing scores of men and women, to the thousands within Islam and Hinduism, coming to Jesus without the West.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gaining favor with them and trust, because I'm blessed watching them do the work of God and just trying to wrestle with our role in this next great movement of the Lord to bring more and more peoples to Christ. So it's great. We love it. And then from time to time, I get to hang out with you guys.
It's always
That's
good.
it.
Nothing like a Jim O'Neill coffee meeting. Dad, real quick before we dive into our questions, if you were to describe that time of getting to rub shoulders with Jim and learning from him and just watching him, you know, everybody in ministry ticks differently, and just seeing him up close is it's just so unique. What would you say?
I can say one word, warmth. When I'm around him, he has warmth. And then if I needed to say a second, it's encouragement. And that's so important because we all need to be encouraged. And so he and his wife have that spiritual gift of encouragement. And at the right time and the right moments, and the warmth comes out, and it's very much needed in ministry today. So warmth and encouragement is Jim O'Neill.
He's warm today because he's in Florida, but he ain't normally warm because it is not warm in Pennsylvania where he lives. But
that's so true.
Well, hey, fellas, we'll jump into these questions. Jim, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk. Being that you are such one of the most brilliant mission minds ever been around, let's talk missions in a practical way. So here's the question: how can an everyday Christian in an everyday church practically partake in missions, and then why should they?
How? You know, I think when you look at Acts chapter 17, and the Apostle Paul paints this picture, God sets the boundaries, the times, and the places of peoples. And then there's this beautiful comma there, so that they might find him. So when you look at America and you look at all of these nations, and of course, my dad emigrated to the U.S. after World War II. An Irishman coming east, right? I'm a product of the diaspora. So when you look at what God has done, bringing the peoples to America, we can say, you know, God's up to something. And so what we can do, how practically, is engage near neighbors who have now moved in the most recent days, this huge Afghani migration. And I know a lot of churches have already engaged them in wonderful ways and loving them now as new near neighbors, right? And having to go through that. We need that. We need to sit with hurting peoples to remind ourselves where we have come from. Mm-hmm. So I think part of it is just this beautiful dimension. We're all sitting at the foot of the cross in need of grace and mercy, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that we've been a little ahead of them and come to faith. So we sit together at the cross. So that the how is take advantage of the diaspora. Mm-hmm. Who are your near neighbors that God has brought? And then you sit with Acts chapter 17 and say, aha. Rather than get angry with our politicians, we as followers of Jesus say, no, there's something going on here. God's up to something pretty unique here. And he wants to bring them near us so they can find our Jesus. And then maybe the why. I would just say at a larger level, guys, we need missions to remind ourselves that Jesus is global. Jesus is not a white middle class Baptist American.
Mm-hmm.
He is a Jesus for all peoples. And I think when we take a look at that, we're reminding ourselves when Jesus died for all peoples, all nations, as Jesus would say there, Matthew 28 at the end of verse 20, it's just a great reminder that he loves them just like he loves me. And so it's a great love movement. I liken it this way. In April, we have our next gen conference. Americans struggle with the word. American believers struggle with the word obedience. We hate to be told what to do. And so I'm heading back in this week and I'm asking this question. When God first began to communicate to humans, he's coming for us. He's coming after us and his great redemption plan, even though we revolted against him. What's the metaphor God would use to begin to introduce himself to us? And this gets to the why, Joseph. The word God would pull out is the word bless. I am going to bless all clans of the earth. And so it's this beautiful, warm word of invitation. While we rebelled, the Lord says, I'm coming for you. And it's not coming with a hammer. He is coming to bless all clans, right there, Genesis 12:3. So, it's just a beautiful invitation to us. I know we Americans struggle. That's why I'm kind of sneaking up on us. I'm kind of backdooring it. And out of when we see blessing, then we say, Lord, I want to obey you. Man, I want to love you, Lord. I want to press in. So it's a beautiful way to just give consideration that we need missions because it's a constant reminder from whence we have come.
I love that answer. There's no way any of us could articulate that perspective. So that was great. Adam, how would you follow that in a local church setting? Where do we have a part?
Yeah, and I agree with everything Dr. O'Neill said. And Doc, I've been preaching through Genesis. These guys like to joke, I've been in it for a year and I'm at chapter 26, but you're spot on. It's that repetition of the covenant. Abraham, I'm going to bless the entire world through you, which had to have sounded insane to him at the time and still in some ways does, that God would be able to and then do that as he has, but to bless the nations. But I really latched on to what you said about we as Americans need to be shown reality. And what I mean by that is, I've taken a few short-term trips here and there, and I was just having lunch with missionaries to Japan who are over here, getting a break. And I said, I'd love for our church to go over there sometime because, and this is the why, the things that I've seen when I've done any kind of international trips have never left me. It's almost like it is just ingrained in my heart, my mind. And in many ways, it directs so much of my own decision-making, even as an American pastor. So I think, short-term mission trips, there's a lot of back and forth about how helpful is that. I'm always going to be a proponent of it because, as I mentioned, whether you're in Haiti, Argentina, Japan, wherever it is, it just reminds you God is a God of and for the nations. And we need to have our perspective in a right place when it comes to that topic.
Dad, before you jump in, I've been working with young adults at our church, and this past January, I took them down to Passion. And obviously, post-COVID, the church is continuing to evolve and look a little different. And I think with this Gen Z, and Jim, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this sometimes, but I think Gen Z will bring to the table a different perspective and approach to missions. For instance, one of the things that they chose to support and fund, and this is just a practical way of how a Christian could take part, is they talked about how we're 10 years away from the Bible being translated to every language. And they gave the little bit of in-depth of what all that entails. And you might just think, oh, put it in a translator. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a very dubious process and a very expensive process. And so at the conference, they raised $1 million. And I want to say like $1 million covers like a few chapters of the New Testament for a specific language. And so that was something that I never would have thought of. And that was something that the young adults, the Gen Z, really got behind, and they were very passionate about. And that's a different side of the mission coin, but it's all flowing in the same direction. And so that was something that was very neat and eye-opening to me. This generation, if they believe in the cause, they will sell their clothes, they will sell their Xboxes, whatever it is. And just to kind of speak to it, my dad and I are partnering on a trip. We're going to Ecuador this summer. His church has a Spanish connection, and I really didn't know what to think. We hadn't done global mission trip in 3 years because of the pandemic. Man, we had 25 people. They're like immediately, hey, I'm going. And we didn't plan on, I planned on taking 10, and we've taken 25. He's taken 10. And so that told me that post-COVID, the American church, the Western church is hungry for that encounter, hungry to push their faith, and then hungry to help the nation. So that was very encouraging. Dad, what's your perspective on all this?
When I think about missions, you can go in a lot of different directions, but I think about loving your neighbor, going back to loving God with all that you are and loving your neighbor as yourself. And when you're talking about loving your neighbor in regards to other nations and other people groups, I think it helps to break down walls that we naturally tend to build for ourselves, particularly in the Western church, because we're so much about ourselves and routine and what we like and what we don't like, and we build up walls without even realizing it. And then that's when the church can get very stale. But when we learn to love other people, regardless of their upbringing, what they bring to the table, the different colors, the different type of languages, I think it really sets the tone of who you are, the DNA of who you are as an individual, and then together as a church. And so, like everything that God commands us to do, it is for the work of the kingdom, but also for the work of the worker. And so like you said, Joseph, we're getting ready to go to Ecuador. And for us, it's not about going on a mission trip to go on a vacation, but we want to go and settle in there for the couple of years and get to know our brothers and sisters in a community and work with them and help them in all areas and really get to know them. And I think what that helps, at least for me, going as a young Christian and then as a young leader, is how it changes perspective. And I saw people that had nothing. I saw people that was worshiping on dirt floors and had a bamboo roof, loved God more than I did. And they had nothing. It was God or bust. And so it helped me to take a step back and really ask myself, okay, maybe I have more biblical knowledge than they do, per se, but what they knew, they grasped better than I did. And so it challenged me to deepen the things that I knew, because we went there to kind of help do some training. And I quickly realized, man, there's some things that I needed to learn. And I think they handle, my father-in-law says it all the time, they handle poverty better than we handle prosperity. And I think that's so true. And so there's so much to gain, but I think it all boils back down to truly understanding the importance of loving your neighbor. And in the culture that we live in our own backyard, there's missions everywhere you look. And so we don't want to turn a blind eye, but we want to see people at the end of the day needing Jesus and needing warmth and needing love and needing to be noticed. And because at the end of the day, we may speak differently, look differently, but we're all the same and we all have the same needs.
Jim, I'll pass it to you here in a second, but real quick, I'm reading a book by Derwin Gray called Building the Multi-Ethnic Church, and he's kind of developed quite the following. But statistically speaking, if you look at the different people groups that are moving into America, and he kind of foreshadows what the Western church is going to look like. And with the amount of different immigrants coming in, our churches are going to start looking very different. And so that's an interesting, Jim, we'll have to talk about that next time. But if you look at the numbers, it's not going to be standard white America anymore. It's going to look different, and our churches are going to follow suit, and all that's in the same conversation. Jim, real quick, could you tell us about the ministry that you guys have with sports and missions? I think it's a tennis ministry you're telling us about.
When we were serving in Asia, I grew up a dumb jock, right? Baseball, football, basketball was standard fare. And then I come to faith and I figure out, what am I going to retire on? Because baseball, football, and basketball are big team sports. So Sterling and I picked up tennis, and then we got our kids into it. When we lived in Asia, I noticed everything was done for the professionals, but nothing was ever done for the kids. So we lived in this province, and I created a province-wide tennis program. I loved tennis myself. I was starting to play it well. And then Sterling and I got a group of the best young tennis players in the province, brought them on to help us, and we discipled them. A number of them came to faith in Christ, and then they began to work with us. The tax commissioner was from our province during the years we were in Bohol, and Tommy Toledo, and he was also an avid tennis fan. The Pro Kenix president for the nation became a benefactor for us. And then I had this amazing gentleman from Cuba to Reading to Miami, Jose Amat, who created a couple of companies, medical facilities, and Jose would fund along with these. And I put this board together in this program, and it was incredible to watch a program for all of these kids. No one ever did anything for the kids in our province. It was a poor province. And we created this amazing sporting program. And I was around the province. I'd be this Pied Piper. All the kids would come out and hang out with me, and we'd show up with the gear and the programs, create a program for the kids that eventually got farmed into a major event in the capital city each year. And it was amazing what God used to give us favor with the community. It opened up amazing Bible studies that we began with the professionals, and then it was the seed out of which this movement began, in a church planting movement that Sterling and I and our colleagues were able to really facilitate. So one time when there was a lot of opposition to us, the religious people were really upset because we were gaining such favor. It was amazing to watch the mayor and the governor of our province write articles in newspapers about us in favor. And it was like, God, you are so kind. So those persons of peace, they begin to emerge. So sports is an international language. Soccer, it humbles us. When the World Cup's going on, how many hundreds of millions? I guess we're into the billions, aren't we? Watching that. So in terms of missions, sports is just a beautiful thing. And then, if truth be known, I love being out there with the kids too and hitting, and out of it has come faith, out of it has come movements. So, go figure, it wasn't baseball, football, or basketball, my big three, but when we turned to tennis, it was amazing that God would use it to give us such favor.
That's super cool. I love the creativity behind it. I think this next generation, part of it, their approach will be just thinking of new, innovative ways how we can spread the gospel, reach the nations, and then fulfill the Great Commission. Well, hey, let's shift to our next question.
Joseph,
yes, sir.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
Send your sons and daughters to the nations. Don't prescript how they have to do it, and watch them innovate. Drop them, helicopter them down, and watch them just by way of loving. Innovation will come, and they're going to do fresh, new things. And I would just say, Joe, as you go forth, I love the posture of humility. When we go on, whether it's short term or for career, if we can go with a posture of humility, what the Lord is going to teach us just by sitting with them and watch the innovation as we drop in our sons and daughters, I think the script is going to be rewritten because of some great things to come.
I agree too. And I think that's how we need to start thinking. Our final question, and we'll be a little bit briefer on this one because that first one was the main one that we wanted to hit today. But something that's very important to each of us is spiritual mentorship. And Jim, just to kind of give everybody a little context, if you hear him reference Next Gen, he's bringing in missionaries, pastors from all over the world, and investing in them and pouring and serving them. And so, if you were to ask each of us, we each have a short list of people that were very influential, and each of you three have been influential. But here's the question, and Jim, I'll start with you, and then we'll just kind of popcorn around. Why is it so vitally important in the Christian life to have spiritual mentors and people invest in you?
Commercial. Your dad has been an amazing mentor to so many men and women. I've been able to watch your daddy up close and personal. We've done a lot together, collaborating on some neat things. So, I just think your dad's Exhibit A. And it's just been cool that he'd send him to Nashville. I thought that was fun. Nashville needs mentor par excellence.
He doesn't even
But
like country music, but he dresses like the yuppies there, so he's okay.
God
I was
loves
the original, Joseph. You remember that?
but I, it's in the kindness of God. Isn't it amazing? He doesn't use the heavenly beings, but he uses us to transmit and model the gospel. Go figure. So, all the way from making disciples of all nations to 2 Timothy 2:2, equipping uh, sons and daughters to take the gospel and translate it to peoples of the world. And then when you just think about the Apostle Paul, follow me as I follow Christ. Jesus pulling in the 12, I'm going to send you forth to go and reproduce after your own kind. So it's just central to our faith. So we have both message and messenger. And in the mystery of God, he wants to use weak people like you and me in that transmission. So it's pretty humbling. But I'd say on the positive side, look at the friendships we get from it. And I sit with you guys as friends from the years because of that.
Jim, that's something I'd say. I think two things I've learned from you the most. One, I love how you're good at networking, but not for the sake of networking, just from loving people. And so, because of your love for people, it's resulted in them seeking influence from you and sitting under you and learning from you. So that'd be the first thing. Because one of my most favorite things to do is meet a guy or a pastor or a young Christian and then link him up with another person. Oh, you guys got to meet. And I love doing that. The second thing, and this is a part of like something with mentorship, I glean different things from different mentors. Like each of you, I glean different things. Adam here lately, it's been his brain. I've been picking his brain as I write my dissertation or my pastor, different things. But Jim, the one thing I'll say, and this is probably a as good a compliment as I can give. If somebody say, Jim O'Neill, what do you say? I say, when I'm around Jim, I feel closer to God and I want to know God the way he does. And I can just feel it like oozing off of you. If that may radiate I just feel it radiating off of you. And when I walk away, I feel closer to God from talking to you. And so not to put the praise on you, but as a part of mentorship, that's something that you've shown me and I've watched and I've learned. And a part of mentorship is watching and asking questions and listening. And so if you're out there today, find a mentor who you can sit under, find several that you can ask questions, and sometimes just be quiet, sit and watch. Adam, what do you think?
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, that's a good segue to what I wanted to say. And of course, I like what Doc said, using the Bible verses. It is foundational to our faith and our worldview, just the way we function. But one phrase that has always just really like stuck in my mind, because I've read so many books and conferences and heard so many speeches and sermons about this topic, is this: be a glutton for mentors. And what we mean by that is you can never have too many. And in my own experience, it has been like this, to where I'm in this season of life and this man or this couple of men are my mentors. And sometimes it's very organic. Sometimes it's more planned, but there's never been a period in my life where I wasn't frequently and consistently meeting with a mentor, to the point that I can say, in all honesty, I would not be here today, I mean, as a pastor at all, without mentors in my life. And so you can never have too many. And one thing that I think a lot of young guys get in trouble with is relegating all of this to online preaching and sermons, and the big, conference speakers. Those men are helpful, but I know that those men would say, I'm not your pastor. I'm not your spiritual mentor. I want you to draw from my ministry, but at the same time, you need close relationships, men that are life on life, know you and know how to ask, if need be, tough questions, accountability. And since this is a sports podcast, I'll use this illustration. I've said this on this podcast before, but Kobe Bryant, my all-time favorite athlete, and I could list you a bunch of reasons why, but one of those is his humility that was driven by a desire to reach his full potential. And so Kobe Bryant, both in the early stages of his career and towards even the end, he would always be reaching out to these legends like obviously Jordan, but also Gary Payton, Hakeem Olajuwon. You just got to think, of all people, you would think, they just kind of stay to themselves and they work, and they've got the ethic that needs to drive them to success. That always struck me about him, as he was willing to just be hungry to ask questions and learn and grow and get better. So, we can learn from so many men and women, and we can glean from their successes, their wisdom, but also even at times their failures. And so I would just say, be a glutton for mentors. Find a mentor, keep them. If they move, find another one.
That's good. Dad, you want to take us out?
Good.
Yeah, I'll come from a different perspective. I think it's important for those that haven't really thought about that to be on the watch and listen to people with purpose, because a lot of the mentors in my life never knew they were mentors. I remember going down to Liberty University, and Jim, you will understand this. I knew that Dr. Falwell was a very big figure, and we spoke a few times. Pam was able to work with him, but I watched him from afar. I watched him at a basketball game, pick up newspaper after newspaper, and watch him do the work to know what's going on in the world so that he can speak with intelligence when asked from his Christian perspective. I remember watching Charles Stanley, who we never spoke. He came down to Liberty University after speaking. I wanted to get in the line, and the line was a mile long. So I went up to the bleachers, got as close as I can, and watched him for 15 minutes. As the line got a little bit longer, I said, "Okay, Pam, let's go." She said, "You don't want to talk to him?" I said, I got everything I needed to know. Because I remember he was being pulled by some of his assistants, and because the line was so long, and he would not allow his assistants to pull him away. As a matter of fact, he was shooing them off, and he never lost eye contact with one person that he spoke. And so I got it. I was able to get what I needed, because I know at the end of the day, he waited until he spoke to every single person, and he gave full attention. Even to this day, when I speak to somebody, I look them right in the eye as long as they're talking to me. And it goes down to that one moment that I had watching Charles Stanley. Same thing with Billy Graham, went to one crusade. And so there's different ways that you could be mentored, but it all starts with that desire for you to watch and listen with purpose. And so there's so much that we can gain by watching. And it's not just the big names. It's a father-in-law, it's a father, it's an uncle, it's seniors at your church that you can gain so much valuable information. And so they're all around us. It's knowledge, it's wisdom that we can pluck like a piece of fruit if we're willing to go that extra mile and do what it takes to truly hear and listen with purpose.
Well, fellas, we could keep going all day, but hey, Jim, maybe your Eagles will win, and we'll come back in a month or so. We'll say fly, Eagles, fly. So this is the first of many. Jim, thanks for being on. Enjoy your time in Florida. We're going to go lick our wounds. Everybody, see you next week.
Go Cowboys.